Confession time.
Let us pray.
Of the litany of subgenres within fear fiction, I candidly am not a supporter of comedy horror. Sure, I have my favorites amongst the likes of Slithers and The Frighteners, but by and large, I feel like the punchlines are what offsets the fear factor. After all, wasn't it humor that ruined the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and relegated the Scream series from self-aware to self-parody? Then there's the king of comedy horror itself.
Hail to the king, baby.
The Evil Dead trilogy that not only leans all the way in on the slapstick, but is actually revered as some kind of badge of honor for horror fans as comedy movies.
Wait a minute now.
That was why 10 years ago, when a remake was released, yet was taken dead serious, retaining the guts and removing the gags, I thought, well, time to put my money where my mouth is, and at least give it a shot. And lo and behold, I actually enjoyed Evil Dead 2013. And by and large, the fans rejected it, didn't show up, cried that Bruce Campbell wasn't starring, and that was a wrap. The 2010s was around the same time when I began to experience an absence of fear and a crisis of faith. To me, it seemed that, as far as the continuation of beloved franchises, that fans could no longer tell the difference between bad entries and quality contributions. Worse still, when fan demands were met and Bruce Campbell returned for Ash vs. Evil Dead, fan support evaporated and the show got nixed. If the decade started with horror in limbo, it certainly ended with this franchise in a tonal no man's land. Fast forward a couple years and word got out, not just of a new Evil Dead movie, but one switching scenes from the cabin in the woods to an apartment building. As intriguing and necessary as a venue change was for the series, the most anticipation I could drum up was hoping that the fans got what they wanted, whatever that even was. Then, all of a sudden, the ad campaign was underway. A plot detail here, a release shakeup there. Not only did I find myself hooked on every promotional package released, any marketing material featured, but was left in disbelief that the serious tone of the remake would be preserved for the sequel. I began to wonder,
Hold up.
Am I an Evil Dead fan? So, here we are, my fearful faithful, at long last a moment of truth. Does the serious approach and scary emphasis pay off, especially since it didn't the first time around? Did the hype deliver up to my expectations? Is there any end in sight to these rhetorical questions so I can just get on with the review?
Right, Starling! What's the plan? All right, just take your seat.
All that and more after our sponsors. Think of the power to tune out the whole world placed in your hands. Now think again, because Jabra Headsets puts that power in your ears. Listen closely. From workout earbuds to Bluetooth music headsets and office hearing devices. So, if other brands play your music sounding like a broken record, march to the beat of a different tune with Jabra. If you're an HD snob like me, you probably buy Samsung for all your major electronics. Catch up on your favorite horror classics on one of their Ultra HD TVs. Watch one of Scream Factory's Blu-rays on their 4K players. Keep up with updates from 80s horror documentary In Search of Darkness on a high-end tablet. Subscribe to your favorite YouTuber through one of their Galaxy phones. I have so many Samsung devices, I've always thought they should be paying me. Well, now they can, and you can help. If you use the link in the description for either Samsung or Jabra purchases, it'll help the channel out tremendously. With the promotional considerations accounted for, it's on with the show. Despite the movie's marketed relocation to Sunnyside, California, I had been surprised from the trailers that we were still paying a visit to the familiar cabin in the woods. From the jump, all the series' trappings are on full display. The forest camera chase, vacationing friends at a cottage scene, that bunkmate under the weather from something under the skin. The suspense slowly simmers until it reaches its boiling point and the tension grows so taut you could crack an egg. Or better yet, a skull. The ensuing mutilation and inventive use of a camera drone for grooming needs, capped off by the rising title card, makes the opening minutes the stuff of nightmares and pure eye candy to the series purists. I was in my seat asking, where do we go from here? Oh right, a flashback. California girls were unforgettable. Daisy Dukes, bikinis on top. Isn't it the dream of every unexpected and unintended mother to receive the news of their bun in the oven in the inviting squalor of an underground rock theater's dingy basement, greeted with all the warmth of anxiety and regret? Planning stages, Planned Parenthood, Plan B, for when you don't think ahead. Our little groupie and leading lady Beth decides she'll take the high road and go full burnout, washout, and dropout by crashing at Big Sister's house, who's already got the weight of feeding 3 kids in a cramped apartment. Spousal separation, single parenthood, a 30-day eviction for a broken down building. Hey, I mean, what could go wrong, right? What's one more mouth to feed, whether from her younger sibling, or secret fetus, or carnivorous literature? Kids, this is probably a good time for a PSA. In spite of how bad things might seem in this crazy world and uncertain times, no matter how desperate life might seem, avoid drastic decisions. Don't move to LA.
Stop it. Get some help.
At the dinner table, the sister-turned-squatter gets acquainted with her nieces, all 2.5 of them. The fraction isn't because of the little tyke. I just can't make heads or tucks between the 2 teenagers. The boy sounds like a girl, and the girl has a boy's haircut. Well, I guess they'll just have to share a penis. Gender! Share a gender. Speaking of slip-ups, a verbal gaffe by Auntie about how long their father's been gone getting cigarettes sees Mama Bear send her cubs out for pizza without even fronting them no cash. Well, we all know where this is headed.
Pizza Papa always gets paid.
All right, Pizza Papa, relax. She's just a kid.
Relax
She's
yourself
hungry.
there, Dr. Strange.
Nowhere good. Mom can't leave these damn kids alone for 5 minutes without them triggering an earthquake. Turns out that the apartment had been built atop a vault, and the ensuing tremor just opened the bank for business. The bleached blonde, that I will hereby refer to as Slim Shady, decides to take a stroll down the hole in the ground. Record sales are down, and you gotta make rent somehow. I had a real Raiders of the Lost Ark ambiance, as searching the dusted, cobwebbed aisles in the dark with a flashlight revealed, of all things, an altar. He manages to uncover a photo of the graduating priests class of 1923, their yearbook journal, and their 3 records of their confessionals. With all these lottery tickets, he just hit the jackpot. He'll call this scandal Pastors Gone Wild. Just what he needs to relaunch his career. B-Rabbit's got a brand new bag.
Oh, I think we'd go straight to the withdrawal.
Think of all the pizza this treasure trove can buy. What's interesting is that, from the trailer, I was mistakenly thinking that the religious charms were meant to protect the cabin from the book, so it was an intriguing twist to see the holy relics instead lining the vault to contain its evil. DJ Peroxide's comeback tour gets indefinitely postponed as he realizes only too late he didn't discover any journal from the priesthood. This book plays for the other team, which means the records he lifted ain't no confessional tapes. They're spellbook incantations. And they just started chanting. From them comes the unholy mantras crafted from the deepest bowels of brimstone, known solely to the dead and sung only by the damned.
I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand.
Music to my jeers. The infernal sound of this melodic poison is so repellent it does what even the earthquake couldn't and knocks out the building's power. The evil let loose hangs a right on Campbell Street and Rainy Boulevard and heads straight down 8 Mile Road on a crash course with Mama Bear. The collision with the occult pushes the mother back into the elevator where the platform decides upon doing some rewiring of its own, and it's got the perfect guinea pig for the job.
This property is hereby condemned.
Poor Mama Bear. All she wanted to do was head down to do some laundry, and instead she was the one taken to the cleaners. Returning to the apartment fresh off one hell of a makeover, what's a mother to do but to get an early start on breakfast? I don't know whether her family didn't approve of her choice of cosmetics or pairing eggs sunny side up with blood, or them wondering what happened to the fresh laundry, but the criticism from these ingrates is just too much for Mama Bear to handle, and she promptly dies. Remember me for the knitting sweaters and not the threats of homicide? Famous last words. Leave it to the nosy neighbors with nothing better to do during an apartment apocalypse than the little Budinskis to meddle in and lay their fellow tenant to rest. Oh, they'll get what's coming to them. In the end, we all do. Since the dead can't cross over with unresolved matters in the world of the living, Mommy's got some business that needs tending. She's still bitter that no one offered to do the dishes she left from green eggs and hemorrhaging that she left in the kitchen, makes a mess in the bathroom, tells one daughter that her mother's out to lunch,
Mommy's with the maggots now,
threatens the other with a Kendall Jenner cat tattoo, and challenges her sister to a knife fight? A bit extreme of a hissy fit just because someone doesn't like your makeover. Keep those kinds of shenanigans where they belong. In the gang violence lining the streets of LA, not in the house. The turf wars are mostly peaceful anyway. So, the rock band sibling invokes squatters' rights and kicks Mama Bear right out of her own apartment.
I'm sorry, Mama. I never meant to hurt you.
She wanted someone else's property, so now it's hers. I mean, they don't call it California for nothing. Mama Bear doesn't take too kindly to being on the receiving end of a timeout and responds the only way an Angelino knows how. A border conflict with her neighbors.
How about that? It's a Mexican standoff. Only we ain't got no Mexicans.
That'll show him to track mud on her freshly cleaned floors. Confession time. Eminem drops them bars and drops the act when he comes clean about stealing the blood book from the bank and the 3 record discs. Meanwhile, Mama Bear tricks her youngest cub into opening the front door. If you thought that locking her outside her own pad was the safe bet, that was just the start of all hell breaking loose. Joseph Gordon-Levitt really did let the Kardashian tattoo go to her head and decides that, with her mom gone, she'll be the one chewing people out over cleaning dishes. And then proceeds the moment that everyone's been waiting for, what this film was promoted on. What started as a non-issue over spilled milk, we'll see everything from the kitchen sink get thrown in during a cat fight. Prepare itemized bad puns.
Gentlemen, start your screaming!
Who ordered the linguine? I hope this isn't too grating on the nerves. Special delivery from Pizza Papa. Don't blame the mess in the kitchen on me without a shred of evidence. I'ma cut you to ribbons. Don't shed a tear. No woman, no cry. Can't skip leg day if you want to get shredded. Baby Bear decides to give Joseph Gordon something to chew on when she shoves her sharpened steak called Staffany into her mouth. More like staph infection, because I don't think that thing was checked for splinters. So, punk rocker sister decides it's time to turn full guitar hero and volunteers to listen to the third and final record in order to fast-track a solution. Unfortunately, this story ain't no fairy tale, and a happy ending must have skipped a beat. The priest's attempts to exorcise the evil not only failed, it backfired, with the Deadites seizing control of the remaining clergy, with their complete destruction their only means of salvation. Joseph Gordon-Levitt takes a stab at Eminem, but fortunately, Marshall Mathers has one last diss track left in him. Levitt learns only too late that he didn't want any of that smoke. Mama Bear ain't too thrilled over having to sneak back into her home through the vents, but that siren song of the record was too strong to resist. So much so that when her punk rocker sister realizes Mama Bear's back to reclaim her territory, she actually presses her clawed fingernail to the disc to continue the record, playing the sounds of despair that petrified men to their very soul. It's all too... I can't... Just hear for yourselves.
The journey is usually the part that you remember anyways.
Undertaker, tonight I'm gonna hurt you.
Guitar Hero cuts to the chase and cuts Mama Bear with scissors to avoid a chase, but in a scene so boss it would make the Game of Thrones Night King blush, apparently Mama Bear's got a new family and wakes the dead. The taunts from the possessed neighbors force the backs of the survivors against a wall as Guitar Hero and her remaining niece seek shelter in the damaged elevator. A particularly grisly scene with Mama Bear ensues. Let's just say it gives her the shot in the arm that she needs for the finale. As far as the survivors' chances, let's just say...
We're on express elevator to hell, going down.
I ain't gonna spoil the ending, but it's got boomsticks, buzzsaws, bloodbaths, and badasses. Mama Bear gets herself a nightmarish twist on family, letting her upgrade go to her heads, but Guitar Hero's got just a thing to remove that chip off her shoulders. She better be packing heat if she's taking on a final boss with a name like the Marauder.
Never one of us. You were nothing but a usurper. Let me help you to see, Slayer.
Alright, we're doing this. Oh yeah, we're doing this, baby. We're doing this. Donk! I didn't even get to savor it. It was too fast. Didn't even get to savor it. Ooh!
We ain't out of the woods yet, folks, cuz... You see, one neighbor in particular who slept through the previous night's remodeling makes her way down to the parking garage just to catch herself a face full of evil dead. It seems she picked up an unintended stowaway en route to her weekend getaway with her friends at a cabin, bringing us full circle to the start of the movie. There's a difference between a competent movie versus a confident direction. I opened this review discussing horror remakes and sequels. In recent memory, there have been remakes that bored me to tears. There have been prequels that were everything I expected them to be, such as Prey, and it sucked. Evil Dead Rise was everything I expected it to be, and it was excellent. This director has a firm understanding of setup and payoff. The outcomes never feel predictable beforehand, but instead left me with anticipation to see how they'd pan out. The plot speeds things up at the right time, slows down the pacing when it has to. As far as characters are concerned, the whole time I really was pulling for the mother Ellie to pull through the possession, just as Ash did before her and Mia from the remake. The finale gives the heroine's sister a character arc the likes that Ellen Ripley would be proud of. A smile curled on my face when the collapsing stairwell from the earthquake sealed the family's fate, because that method of isolation reminded me of the flooded escape route from the remake. Attention to detail with your plot progression is always appreciated. The only real critiques I have are, I expected the ending camper's inevitable possession by the evil force to have a more creative twist before her send-off to the cabin, and wanting more of the story. Note, the former is an admitted nitpick, while the latter, I said wanted more, not needed more. The plot did not leave me unsatisfied. If anything, left me with a craving for additions for what I had already seen. And isn't that the mark of a good film? To think, we dodged a bullet with this one, as it was supposed to release to streaming on HBO Max, but early reactions compelled the studio to give it the theater treatment. On the subject of the studio, New Line Cinema's homecoming as the house that Freddy built has been spotty at best. Evil Dead Rise is the closest they've come to It Chapter 1 in years in terms of fear factor. Considering 2013's Conjuring kicked off their crusade to get back in touch with their horror roots, I guess we can only expect a great horror movie out of them once every 4 to 6 years. The silver screen editions in the Evil Dead series are now 2 for 2. In the last decade, both the remake and sequel have now delivered in spades, or boomsticks if you will. Considering the quality of franchise entries, I wish the recent Hellraiser reboot was this good. Hell, I wish the Conjob universe was this good. A series that ain't been watchable since the first film that released a decade ago. Seems like a mind's eye theater is in order for that anniversary. To this film's fence-sitters, naysayers, and detractors, I can only say, hey, we're a horror community, and we're not always going to see eye to eye. Good taste is an acquired taste, so we have to be tolerant of other people's handicaps. After all, this film still didn't have Bruce Campbell. I mean, no Ash, no cash, am I right? Even though he produced this film, not to mention the remake. I guess you missed that. Twice. But that's okay, I support your decision to not support great horror when you see it. No need to maintain quality control, just let these franchises spiral downward and wonder why afterwards. Let this serve as proof positive of the power of quality storytelling, that it can even turn someone like me around on this franchise no matter how many decades after its debut. Take it from a veteran viewer who's been around the block. Take it from someone with taste for the finer things in the genre. Take it from a fan of Evil Dead. Oh, and one more thing. Happy Mother's Day. I've been Inkarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.